Thank you, Speaker. I rise to speak on behalf of the Greens and completely reject the motion before us brought to us by the member for Willoughby. I think it is not only offensive but patronising to be suggesting that this is the right balance between the sensible and appropriate use of public funds. I think if you in any way listened to the cries for help of frontline public sector workers currently, if you heard the nurses, if you saw the tears of the nurses sitting in a room just down there when they briefed us about how under-resourced they are, how underpaid they are, and how desperate they are for support and assistance, there's nothing that you could say that a 3 or 3.5% increase in public sector wages would actually solve. When you hear the strikes and the calls of the teachers outside who are desperate to have better pay and conditions, who are overworked and underpaid, and you hear the trauma in their voices when they know that the next generation of young people are having their education sacrificed because of the mean and cruel policies of this government, then how you could possibly say that this is a sensible and appropriate use of funds is outrageous. I think that the Premier thought that by announcing this pay rise today, and the member for Willoughby coming in here, that what we would see is everyone would stop striking, everyone would go, oh, thank you sir, and kowtow and say thanks and vote in the Libs at the next election. Well, I think the PSA and the Teachers Federation and the nurses, I think the transport workers are very, very clear that the thing that they know that is the best solution to a strong public sector in New South Wales, to a strong union movement in New South Wales, is to kick these guys out, to kick the Liberal National Party out in March next year. And can I just say, it's pretty exciting to see that there is a movement on, and the movement is to reject the neoliberal agenda of the coalition government. And this is amazing. This is amazing to see. What we know is that workers in this state are calling on the government to completely scrap the unfair public service wage cap. The Greens' policy is to repeal the arbitrary and unfair public sector pay freeze legislation, and that's why I will be seeking to amend this motion.
Order.
That is why we'll seek to amend it to put on the record our position, which is to move to delete all words after that and replace with "This House supports the abolition of public sector wage caps in New South Wales."
No, that's not an amendment, you know it.
A 3% pay rise, which would also include the legislated superannuation increase, means that this offer is closer to a 2.5% increase, which means that real wages will go backwards. But it's also important to remember this isn't just about wages. When you talk to teachers, when you talk to nurses, when you talk to paramedics, when you talk to transport workers, frontline emergency service workers, they all say that they are not resourced adequately. The nurses are calling for nurse-to-patient ratios, and this government is failing to deliver. The teachers are calling for an urgent addressing of the teacher shortage, and this government is failing to deliver. The paramedics are desperate for more support, and this Liberal National government is failing to deliver. But what do they deliver on? What do they deliver on? They deliver on pay rises for themselves. They deliver on pay rises for themselves. A large number of parliamentary secretaries and almost every single coalition backbencher has received a pay rise of at least $5,000. And then in addition to that, what we know is some have seen increases as much as $150,000. Take a minute to think about this. The New South Wales government minister receives an extra $140,000 in their salary. An extra $140,000 in their salary on top of the basic MP wages, while senior ministers are paid an extra $160,000. Our nurses and teachers' salaries sit around the $70,000 mark. $70,000 as their whole salary. These guys over here, $150,000 extra. And they're sitting here saying, oh, this is sensible and reasonable. This is a sensible and appropriate use of public funds. Well, can I tell you, I do not think the people of New South Wales would think that giving the member for Willoughby any additional duties is a sensible and appropriate decision or use of public funds. I certainly do not. The Greens are absolutely appalled by the complete cruelty of this Liberal National Government to fail to abolish the wage cap. We are committed to abolishing the wage cap in New South Wales, and we are absolutely committed to make sure we are standing with public service workers to ensure that they are treated with respect, dignity and appropriate levels of remuneration.